During the first COVID lockdown of last year, I spent 1 week making a little game from start to finish, publishing it on Android and PC. After picking up a little more knowledge of game development since then, I think it's time I take this game and I turn RTX on. Today, I am going to show you how I press this button and made this game in 3D. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, Blakey here and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing great. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy today's video, as if I hit 1000 subscribers, I'm making a brand new channel purely for tutorials. Anyway, enough introduction, it's time to jump into this project. So for context, Balance the Blade was a game where you can guess. And it was all primarily pixel art, as you can see, with some added effects and extra sound and stuff like that. I published it within a week and didn't really touch the game again. But now, I wanted to go back and make a 3D version of this game, not to publish, just for the challenge, and just to see what it would look like if I made this as a 3D game with good graphics and all of that stuff. Now the first thing that was going to be a challenge was modelling. Now at the moment, I'm actually doing a lot of 3D modelling for multiple different projects, so doing this just fit quite well with the timing. Nevertheless, it took me a solid 2 hours to make a sword that looks like a sword, and even then that is questionable. But honestly, I actually learned quite a lot while making it, so I won't complain. I took an image of a sword into Blender to copy the outline and then just basically guessed my way from there. My form of learning isn't the best, as I don't like following along tutorials to make something from start to finish. I want to make them myself and then just look up tutorials for the specific technique I don't know how to do. For whatever reason, this is just what's effective for me. Maybe that's the same for you, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Regardless, after making a completely botched sword, I just made a little low poly rock to balance the sword on and used a boolean modifier to give it a flat top, and that was that. Simple enough. I brought them both into Unity and ensured there were no mesh errors or anything, and sure enough, we were actually clear. So far, the project seemed to not be a total mess, which tends to be the trend in these game projects, so I just rolled with it. My next objective was to replicate the background in the game, which is like a pink purplish colour, but I didn't want a flat texture because I'm trying to make a really simple game look overly good, so I wanted to go all out. So I made a new skybox and altered the settings of it to make a similar background and then replaced the current skybox with it. With that, I also added the materials needed for the sword and rock to give them some texture. In games like this, simplicity is the key to making them look good. Or at least that's what I tell myself, so I don't have to make detailed textures for meshes, but anyway, we won't talk about that. With these features and a little bit of post-processing, we've already got the visuals sorted to make this look good. Now we've got to rely on some simple code and some other visual aspects to bring out the mechanics of this game and make it feel good. Now before we continue, I want to say that as I'm not publishing this game, I won't be implementing things such as a score, as there is simply no point. If you do want to play this, let me know and I can send you the files for it. Back to the game. As you can see, this sword at the moment just drops and kind of falls off the rock, as of course there isn't any code yet. I do love how it kind of falls off realistically though, it feels quite refreshing. It was then time to add the simple movement code needed for the rock to make it look left and right. And at the start, as you can see, the rock was just way too slippery. So I gave it a physics material with a lot of friction, and then it was much better. And already the challenge is there. You now have to balance the sword for as long as you can, just like the first one. As you can see, I'm not the best, but hey, I'm the coach, not the player, so I don't want to hear any slander about my gaming skills in the comments, alright? Speaking of the comments, let me know what you think of today's video. I reply to every comment, so make sure to let me know your thoughts, good or bad. Anyway, I added the code to restart the game, which consists of freezing the sword when it reaches the collider and restarting the scene shortly after. You'll see why I freeze the sword in a second and don't just restart the scene straight away. Regardless, this worked absolutely fine, as you can see. One thing this game lacks, that every Unity game needs though, is particles. Now in the first game, particles spawn when the player loses balance, to simulate that the sword has broken into pieces. I plan to replicate this using 3D meshes as the pieces, which I thought would look super cool and add some sauce to the visuals that are already in place. My first attempt at this was by trying to make a material with a sword texture on it. I quickly learned this is not the correct method. But it's fine, we did end up making some progress and I managed to get the 3D meshes in there as particles. Now it did take a ton of editing and tweaking to improve this, because as you can probably see, this isn't the desired effect just yet. I had to change just about every effect available in the particle system to get this working. But the good thing about these little projects is I always learn how to do something new that I didn't know before. Anyway, now I had an effect that I'm actually really satisfied with in hindsight. They kind of float into the sky before dissolving in the air, and I think it looks quite cool. Now, this is me nitpicking here completely, but one thing I'm not a fan of is how the particles just pass through the rock, so I just had to change it. I mucked about with the collision settings on the particles to ensure some of them bounce off, just for a little added flair. And now the particles do indeed bounce off the rock, and it looks fabulous. The next step in improving the visuals of this game was to add a camera shake when the sword falls off. Now, if you've been at this channel for a while, you may know I literally use the exact same code for every camera shake, as it is just so versatile and works in so many situations. It's essentially randomizing the camera position by an amount and for a chosen duration, and this is all inside a coroutine that can be called from any script. If you didn't understand that, basically I can tell the camera to move randomly from anywhere and it will do as I say. Easy. Now, before I show you the results after that, I'm going to show you the other things I added to flare this game up before you see the final result, to see the difference it all really makes. After the camera shake, I needed to add the countdown seen in the original game, where time is frozen for a while at the start to prepare the player for the game. This is easy enough, just a script that includes a few references to the scene, and when the countdown reaches 0, the game's time is set back to normal, allowing the player to start. A super simple aspect to the game, but very important regardless, so it couldn't be missed out. One thing I've thought about this game is that the background just looks bland. There is one thing that can change that. You may have guessed it. Particles, of course. The easiest way to make your game look good without really doing much. I'm really scamming my way to a good looking game here, but we won't talk about it. Anyway, I added particles across the width and length of the visible screen and ensured that their direction was randomized, along with a few other things to build the atmosphere behind the sword. And finally, I added a fade in and fade out animation for when the scene is restarted. It will fade in and out of black to add a seamless aspect to the game, ensuring an extra layer of polish to keep it as professional as possible. And with all of these added aspects, I think we can safely say that from the original, we can turn RTX on and the game will then look like this. And with that, we successfully managed to spruce this game into an even better looking one in 3D in just a few days. This is not the first time I've made a game of mine in 3D, but it's certainly my favourite so far. I'm trying to make the move to more 3D games as much as I can to expand my skill set, and slowly but surely I think it's working. Lads, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you thought about it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. I've got a lot more 3D stuff coming along the way. If you've been following the channel, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Regardless, I'll thank you all very much for watching today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.